And we have the Darvaza gas crater in the Karakum Desert in Turkmenistan, known as the door to hell. This rather eerie location is a natural gas field that collapsed into this large crater that's been burning since 1971. As to how this happened, nobody knows for sure. One story goes that Soviet scientists were drilling in an attempt to extract gas, but the site collapsed, and in an attempt to prevent poisonous gases from releasing into the atmosphere, they decided to ignite the gas, creating a massive crater that has been engulfed in flames ever since. The fiery pit measures about 70 meters or 230 feet in diameter and emits a constant glow. Seems almost like it would be kind of mesmerizing. Foreboding, but mesmerizing. Just this large pit constantly set aflame. Great place to keep warm, spend the night if you ever find yourself lost in the Karakum Desert. Just don't get too close and accidentally... Number 9. Huska Castle. Nestled in the Czech countryside, Huska Castle is rumored to be built over a bottomless pit that serves as a gateway to hell. Legends claim that this castle was constructed to seal the abyss and prevent the demonic entities from escaping into our world. Its unsettling architecture and eerie atmosphere has fueled the belief that supernatural forces are at play within its walls. Now, the castle remains open to visitors. You're just prevented from accessing that aforementioned hellhole it's built on top of. Now, of course, the 13th century Gothic castle has gained quite a reputation for being haunted, and it's not just pale figures that disappear when you get close to them, or disembodied cries or laughter. That's boring, regular old ghost stuff. People have reported seeing demonic, winged creatures lurking in its halls. Now, that is different. Huska Castle was also the site of some mysterious experiments during World War II. In 1945, the SS occupied the castle, where they were rumored to perform dark experiments in the occult, with many locals at the time believing they were harnessing the powers of hell for their experiments. Next up, we have Mount Hekla. Mount Hekla, often referred to in the Middle Ages as the Gateway to Hell, is an active volcano located in the South Iceland, known for its frequent eruptions and its imposing presence. The mountain has long been associated with the realm of the underworld. According to ancient folklore, Hekla was believed to be the place where souls descended into hell. The volcano has erupted 20 times on record, with the last eruption in February of 2000. Some have claimed to see the souls of the damned fly forth from the volcano along with the smoke and ash.
Number 10. Morgan Island, aka Monkey Island. Morgan Island, also known as Monkey Island, is located in Beaufort County, South Carolina. Historically, the island has been uninhabited due to its location and distance from the mainland. But in 1979, it was established as a home for a colony of free-range rhesus monkeys, hence the name Monkey Island. Originally, the monkey colony was located at the Caribbean Primate Research Center in La Peguera, Puerto Rico. But according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, there were incidents of the free-ranging monkeys escaping, carrying viral herpes B infections, which led to outbreaks in the local population. Puerto Rico needed help, and South Carolina stepped in to offer an uninhabited island for research. In 1979 and 1980, over 1,400 animals were relocated to Morgan Island. The monkeys are used for public health research by the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. The risk they carry with having diseases is the reason why it isn't safe for any human to come in contact with them. It's said that there are more than 3,500 monkeys, and that it's such a safety issue that they are fed through an automated machine. Now, some humans have entered the island, only if necessary, and after their visit to the island, they are quarantined to prevent spread of any diseases. Number 9. ADX Florence, Colorado. ADX Florence is an American federal prison near Florence, Colorado. So yes, humans can be there, but just hear me out. It's operated by the Federal Bureau of Prisons, a division of the United States Department of Justice. It opened in 1994 and is classed as a supermax or control unit prison, referring to its extremely high levels of security, as it has a more controlled level of custody than a maximum security prison. ADX Florence was commissioned when the Federal Bureau of Prisons needed created a unit designed specifically for the secure housing of those prisoners most capable of extreme violence towards staff or other inmates. As of August 2022, there were a total of 341 inmates housed. They are confined for 23 hours per day in single cells with facilities made of poured reinforced concrete to deter self-harm and are under 24-hour supervision, carried out intensely with high staff-inmate ratios. Now, during their hour outside the cell, which can occur at any time, day or night, they are kept under restraint, handcuffed, shackled, or both. The hour outside the cell is for exercise and a phone call if they have earned the privilege. Their diet is restricted to ensure that the food cannot be used to harm themselves or create unhygienic conditions in their cell. Some cells even have showers, which further reduces the amount of handling of inmates that correctional officers have to perform. In fact, it's such a secure facility that very few images of it exist. Now, the prisoners are allowed visitors, but only up to 5 times a month, and these visitations can be taken away. Number 8. Hart Island, New York. Hart Island is located in the Bronx, New York, and is a 1-mile long strip of land in the Long Island Sound that has served many functions over the centuries. The island's first public use was a training ground for the United States colored troops in 1864. Since then, Hart Island has been the location of a Union Civil War prison camp, a psychiatric institution, a tuberculosis sanatorium, a potter's field with mass burials, a homeless shelter, a boys' reformatory, a jail, a drug rehabilitation center, and a cemetery. Today, you can go to the island, but it's very difficult. Hart Island is only open 1 weekend each month for families to visit grave sites, and that is all. Besides, with all the dark history, I don't think anyone would want to go there if they could. Number 7. North Brother Island. North Brother Island is a small island located in New York City, East River, between the mainland Bronx and Rikers Island. Now, not only is this island forbidden, it's also hidden, overrun by weeds, and unsafe for the public, plus its sensitive ecosystem is much safer without visitors. This dystopian-looking island was abandoned 50 years ago, but prior to that, in the mid-19th century, North Brother Island was filled with people. At this time in history, disease and illnesses were rampant in New York, and this isolated island was a perfect location for the sick to be quarantined. In the mid-1880s, the Riverside Hospital moved there from Blackwell's Island, now known as Roosevelt Island. Riverside Hospital had been founded in the 1850s as the smallpox hospital to treat and isolate victims of that disease. Its mission eventually expanded to other quarantinable diseases, initially typhoid and then smallpox and tuberculosis. During the polio epidemic in 1916, Riverside treated numerous patients. The island was also the site of the wreck of the General Soklom, a steamship that burned on June 15, 1904, where 1,021 people died either from the fire on board the ship or from drowning before the ship beached on the island shores. Safe to say, this island has seen a lot of horrors, so much that it has been nicknamed Hell's Gate for its dangerous waters and is rightfully off limits. Now, if some place is called Hell's Gate, I would not want to go there anyway, and you shouldn't either. Number 2. Fort Knox. Fort Knox is a United States Army installation in Kentucky. As the Army's Human Resource Center of Excellence, Fort Knox is now positioned to continue its central role in the front ranks of military installations in the United States, recruiting, training, and supporting warfighters in the challenges of the 21st century. The Human Resource Center of Excellence is responsible for all soldier career management, from swearing in to departing service. Its units include Sections Command, Human Resource Command, Army Recruiting Command, and Army Cadet Command. Fort Knox has a daytime population of over 26,000 soldiers, family members, and civilian employees. Units located on Fort Knox are considered partners in excellence and include active duty Army organizations, Army Reserve, National Guard, and the U.S. Marine Corps. This well-fortified military base is one place that's impossible to enter. It has defenses such as minefields, barbed wire, electric fences, armed guards, and cameras. It's only ever been opened once, back in 1974, and that was for the news media and Congress. The Hollywood sign, California. I think you all know what I'm talking about when I bring up the Hollywood sign. Now, you might be confused. It's a huge tourist attraction. Yes, It is, but there are areas around the sign that are prohibited. The closest you can get to the sign is behind and above it, where you can enjoy the fabulous view of the city. Why can't you get up right and personal though? Well, the sign is on a rough, steep terrain, so there are barriers to prevent unauthorized access. In the year 2000, the Los Angeles Police Department actually installed a security system featuring motion detention and closed-circuited cameras. Any movement in the marked restricted areas triggers an alarm that notifies the police, therefore you cannot touch the sign. This place is heavily surveilled as it's monitored 24/7 by the Los Angeles Police and Fire Departments and park rangers. Although some people have gotten through security to vandalize the sign. I mean, does anyone remember Hollyweed on January 1st, 2017? Despite that though, it remains mostly prohibited. Number 9. Roberts Island, Suffolk County, New York. Located just off of Long Island, this private island is not only extremely valuable, it's impossible to access. The 435-acre teardrop of land belongs to billionaire businessman Louis Bacon and is thought to be worth around $500 million. He purchased it in 1993 at the bankruptcy court auction for $11 million. He has made significant investments into restoring the neglected island, going so far as to import full-grown oak trees to replace ones harvested for lumber years later. Some non-native grasses were removed from the island and replaced, and hunters reduced an overgrown deer population. The island also has the healthiest turtle population in the state, which includes the eastern mud turtle. Lewis has spent years rebuilding the ecosystem, and he believes that allowing others on the island will lead to its destruction, so no one can visit. And I mean, that is a pretty good reason, no? Number 8. Lascaux Caves, France. Lascaux Caves is a network of caves near the village of Montigny. Over 600 wall paintings cover the interior walls and ceilings of the cave. The paintings represent primarily large animals, typical local contemporary fauna that correspond with the fossil record of the Upper Paleolithic in the area. They are the combined effort of many generations, and with continued debate, the age of the paintings is now usually estimated at around 17,000 years. They're beautiful, but unfortunately the cave was sealed to the common public following 1963 in order to preserve the site, which is listed as a World Heritage Site by the UNESCO. However, in order to allow everyone to admire the masterpieces of prehistory, a reconstruction of the Leto site has been made so you can do a virtual tour, which is still pretty cool. Archaeologists concluded that human proximity might ruin the ancient work of art, so you can only enjoy it through your screen. Number 7. The Whites Club, UK. Okay, so men can enter this place, but women can't. And if you're non-binary, I don't really know what to tell you. At White's, the club is so exclusive that few have ever managed to sneak inside and find out what really goes on in there. There are, incredibly, certain places in the world where women are forbidden access, the best known probably being gentlemen's clubs, which are very popular within British culture. Founded in 1693 and located at 37 St. James Street in Piccadilly, the members of the Whites Club include political leaders, senior bankers, and even heirs to the British throne, so yeah, Prince William is a part of this club. The restriction on women is so strict, only the late Queen Elizabeth has ever managed to gain entry, but I mean, she was the queen, it's not like they could have said no. According to The Telegraph in 2013, David Cameron voluntarily left the select club, saying, "I'm dismayed the club does not accept women as members. I find that inexplicable in this day and age, I really do." The members of London's oldest and most elitist gentlemen's club has shrunk to 500, and its bar has been open for over 200 years. Number 6. Doomsday Vault, Norway. The Doomsday Vault is a seed bank located in the middle of the Arctic Svalbard archipelago. There are 3 vaults leading off from the chamber, but only one is currently in use, and its door is covered in a thick layer of ice, hinting at the sub-zero temperatures inside. In here, the seeds are stored in vacuum-packed silver packets and test tubes in large boxes that are neatly stacked on floor-to-ceiling shelves. These boxes potentially hold the keys to the future of global food security. These seeds are here in case of a catastrophic event. Now, over the past 50 years, agricultural practices practices have changed dramatically, but while crop yields have increased, biodiversity has decreased to the point that now only about 30 crops provide 95% of human food energy needs. The US has lost over 90% of its fruit and vegetable varieties since the 1900s. This monoculture nature of agriculture leaves food supplies more susceptible to threats such as diseases and drought. Due to all this, the vault isn't open to the public, and it can allow entry to special guests, but only on certain days. Number 5. Isle Grand Shrine, Japan. Japan is known worldwide for its shrine culture and has nearly 80,000 shrines in total. The most prominent out of all is the Isle Grand Shrine. It's one of the most expensive temples in Japan, credited to its architectural magnificence. To keep the Shinto traditions, which go back to the 8th century, this temple is reconstructed once every 20 years. That's why this temple is so expensive. Only members of the royal family are granted access to this prestigious ancient representation sacred to the Japanese. Due to this, the general public is not allowed beyond the sight of the thatched roofs of the central structures hidden behind 4 tall wooden fences. Number 4. North Brother Island. North Brother Island is a small island located in New York City's East River between the mainland Bronx and Rikers Island. Now, not only is this island forbidden, it's also hidden, overrun by weeds, and unsafe for the public. Plus, its sensitive ecosystem is much safer without visitors. This dystopian-looking island was abandoned 50 years ago, but prior to that, in the mid-19th century, North Brother Island was filled with people. At this time in history, disease and illness were rampant in New York, and this isolated island was the perfect location for the sick to be quarantined. Riverside Hospital was relocated there and had been founded in the 1850s as the smallpox hospital to treat and isolate victims of that disease. Its mission eventually expanded to other quarantinable diseases. Now, the island was also the site of a wreck of the General Suklum, a steamship that burned in 1904, where 1,021 people died either from fire on board the ship or from drowning before the ship beached on the island shores. Safe to say, this island has seen a lot of horrors, so much that it has been nicknamed Hell's Gate for its dangerous waters and is rightfully off limits.
Aokigahara Forest. You may know it better by its dark nickname. This forest is pretty infamous. It's one of the most mysterious places not just in Japan, but in the entire world. At the base of Mount Fuji, Aokigahara Forest is a place shrouded in mystery and sorrow. It has gained a pretty notorious reputation as a place associated with death, as every year over 100 bodies are found there, with most of them having taken their own lives. This has led to an increased perception of the forest as some sort of gateway to the afterlife. And the question has always remained, why? What is it about this place that's made it the destination for so many seeking to take their own lives? It's said that the spirits of those who have died there reside within the forest, making it one of the most haunted places in the world. Despite its haunting reputation though, this forest also holds cultural significance as a place of natural beauty, and efforts are being made to raise awareness about its preservation and the importance of mental health support. Deep in the heartland of Kansas lies Stull Cemetery, which has gained notoriety due to the dark legends and spooky tales that surround it. According to local lore, the cemetery is believed to be one of the 7 gateways to hell, making it a hotspot for supernatural activity. Stories of occult rituals, paranormal sightings, and supernatural phenomena have surrounded Stull Cemetery and the abandoned church that stands next to it since the mid-70s. Although some claim that demonic weirdness was going on there long before that, one of the most chilling legends associated with Stull Cemetery is that it's the devil's playground. It's said that during the spring equinox and on Halloween night, the devil himself appears at the cemetery. Throughout the 70s and 80s, more and more stories began to circulate about the strange occurrences people would experience there. One tells of 2 college students that were visiting the cemetery who began running back to their car after a sudden strong gust of wind seemed to come out of nowhere, only to find that their car was now on the other side of the highway, facing the opposite direction that they had parked it in. Another legend claims that a hidden staircase leads down to the depths of hell from the cemetery's mausoleum. Not very secret if someone saw it, but hey, The Paris Catacombs. Beneath the bustling streets of Paris lies a labyrinth of tunnels known catacombs. This underground ossuary serves as the final resting place in the remains of millions of people. Descending into the depths of the catacombs reveals an underground maze of human bones. Although it's illegal to enter the restricted sections of the catacombs, that hasn't stopped some adventurers from exploring the underground network entirely, some of which have never come out alive. Of course, there's that famous video of the man running through the catacombs and getting completely lost. As to whether that's actually a real video or not remains uncertain. That catacombs were initially created as a solution to the city's overcrowded cemeteries in the late 18th century, but over time they've become the subject of countless tales and urban legends. It is said that those who venture too deep into the tunnels can become disoriented and lost, forever trapped in the maze-like passages. At our number 4 spot, we have Pluto's Gate. Pluto's Gate, also known as the Gate to Hell, is located in the ancient city of Hierapolis in present-day Turkey. According to historical accounts, Pluto's Gate was a natural cave that emitted toxic gases, primarily carbon dioxide. These gases were lethal to any living creature that entered the cave, suffocating them to death. The deadly fumes gave rise to the belief that the cave was a portal to the underworld. In ancient times, it was even believed that sacred rituals and sacrifices performed near the entrance of the cave could communicate with the spirits of the dead. Pluto's Gate became the subject of many cautionary tales and dark legends. Over time, ancient texts describe how birds flying over the cave would fall dead due to the noxious fumes. For a long time, Pluto's Gate was thought of as simply a myth and a legend. That is until modern excavations revealed the existence of this cave, and the myths surrounding its inherent danger turned out to actually be kind of true. The presence of high concentrations of carbon dioxide in the air poses a risk to visitors, making it a hazardous location to explore. And due to safety concerns, access to the cave is restricted to protect visitors from potentially fatal gases. St. Patrick's Purgatory in Ireland. This mythical site, located on Station Island in Lough Derg, County Donegal, has a long and intriguing history dating back to the early Christian era. Legend has it that St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, received a vision from God, revealing the entrance to Purgatory on Station Island, a place where souls undergo purification before entering into heaven. However, the version associated with St. Patrick's Purgatory takes a bit of a darker turn. It's said that this particular purgatory is a gateway to hell itself, where sinners are condemned to eternal torment. Throughout the Middle Ages, accounts of the horrors experienced by those who entered St. Patrick's Purgatory began to circulate. Pilgrims claimed to have witnessed demons, fiery pits, and intense suffering during their spiritual journeys. These tales only added to the mystique surrounding the site and its supposed connection to the underworld. Number 2, the Gates of Guinea. The Gates of Guinea are associated with the concept of Guinea, a mythical realm in the teachings of voodoo. Guinea is a place where spirits dwell, kind of a passage between the living world and the land of the dead, where one's ancestors reside. It is believed that the Gates of Guinea serve as a portal or bridge that allows communication and interaction between the living and the spiritual realm. According to local legends, the Gates of Guinea can be found in specific locations throughout New Orleans, often in hidden or secluded spots, mostly throughout the many cemeteries on Canal Street running through the French Quarter. It's said that Guinea can be accessed by opening all 7 gates in sequence. Many rituals and practices are associated with the Gates of Guinea. Offerings such as food, drinks, or symbolic objects are often left at these sacred sites as a way to honor the spirits and ancestors. It's believed that through these offerings and rituals, one can establish a sort of connection with the spiritual realm and receive blessings or even assistance from the spirits. The Acton Tunichil Muknal Cave. Acton Tunichil Muknal is an ancient Mayan archaeological site located in Belize. The cave is famous for its intricate network of underground passages, which lead to a sacred chamber deep within its depths. To reach this chamber, you must traverse treacherous terrain, wade through underground rivers, and sometimes even swim through narrow passages. The danger associated with this cave doesn't just lie in its dark history, though. It stems from the challenging nature of the cave itself. Its submerged sections require strong swimming skills, and the rugged terrain can be difficult to navigate at times, but the cave did serve as a sacred site for the ancient Maya, who believed it to be a gateway to the underworld. It was also used for ceremonial rituals, including human sacrifices. When times were desperate, blood sacrifices would be made to the gods, many of whom were young. And the remains of these sacrificial victims, preserved for centuries, can still be found within the cave. Now, you can go to the cave, but not alone. Visitors to the cave are required to be accompanied by licensed guides due to all the inherent risks involved in going there. And we're starting off this list with the Pottawatomie County Jail located in Council Bluffs, Iowa. It was built in 1885 and is known as the squirrel cage, or at least it used to be, due to its unique design. Instead of traditional cells, the jail featured a rotating circular cage. The design was kind of revolutionary for the time. It was intended to increase security and allow for better surveillance of the inmates, but was ultimately discontinued due to its impracticalities. Some prisoners were also severely harmed in the rotating contraption. So basically there was these cylindrical cages that prisoners' cells were located in. They each had one opening, and the jailer turned this crank and the cell would rotate to either face the opening or the enclosed part of the cage. It was pretty dangerous, and a lot of prisoners lost limbs. So yeah, not a place you would have wanted to end up in. Despite being decommissioned in 1969, many people believe that this county jail is haunted. The former jail was also featured in Ghost Adventures, so if you want to learn more about it, you can check that episode out. At number 9, we have the Orleans Parish Prison. Orleans Parish Prison, located in New Orleans, Louisiana, is regarded as one of the worst prisons in the United States and was one of the most heavily impacted facilities during Hurricane Katrina in 2005. The prison has a violent reputation and has been scrutinized for being understaffed, filthy. Probably the most infamous incident at the prison, though, took place during Hurricane Katrina. Roughly 650 prisoners were left behind in the prison after the hurricane hit, and the conditions inside quickly deteriorated. Of course, as the floodwaters rose and power was lost, many inmates were left without food, water, basic necessities, and some were forced to drink from toilets in order to survive. It's believed that over 500 prisoners lost their lives. The State Correctional Institution, also known as Western Penitentiary in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This former prison has been left abandoned since 2017 and is known for a particularly dark incident that took place in 1987. A fire broke out in one of the prison's cell blocks, causing significant damage and endangering the lives of inmates and staff. That's what fire does. It's dangerous. It was later revealed, though, that the fire had been deliberately started by a group of guards in response to a protest by inmates. The incident happened when a group of inmates began protesting poor conditions and mistreatment at the facility, including overcrowding and limited access to basic necessities. In response, a group of guards reportedly entered the cell block and set fire to a pile of garbage, causing the blaze to quickly spread throughout the area. Inmates were left trapped in their cells, and smoke and flames engulfed the block. Many suffered smoke inhalation and other injuries as a result. Nevada State Prison. This former prison started operation in 1862 and has been left abandoned since 2012. Located in Carson City, Nevada State Prison was known for its harsh conditions, numerous executions, and some of its infamous inmates. Prison's long history has this association with death and despair, and it's led a lot of people to believe it could be haunted. Numerous reports of paranormal activity have been documented by visitors and employees of the prison. Strange sounds, eerie voices, and unexplained footsteps have all been discussed, particularly in the cell blocks, the execution chamber. Visitors have also reported feeling a sense of unease or, being watched by mysterious eyes. And some have even claimed to have seen apparitions of former inmates or guards. One of the most famous ghosts believed to haunt the prison is that of a former inmate who was executed by hanging in the 19th century. Many visitors have also reported seeing his ghost in the execution chamber or hearing his disembodied voice. Other reported hauntings include a guard who was murdered by inmates in the 1950s. The prison's eerie reputation has drawn attention from a lot of ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts like Jack Baggins himself and his Ghost Adventures crew. Next up, we have the Old Essex County Jail. The Old Essex County Jail, located in Newark, New Jersey, was known for its harsh conditions and, again, brutal treatment of inmates. Today, many people believe that the jail is haunted by the spirits of those who died within the walls due to the extreme conditions and inhumane treatment of the former inmates. One of the main reasons why the Old Essex County Jail is considered haunted is the high number of deaths that occurred. The jail's overcrowded conditions, poor sanitation, and lack of medical care led to numerous outbreaks of disease, which claimed the lives of many inmates. Additionally, the jail was the site of several violent incidents. Trauma and, pain that happened within these walls, some say kind of left an imprint on the jail, leading to the supposed paranormal activity. And another factor that contributes to the possible haunting is the evidence of ghostly activity. If you want to call it evidence, it's people saying they've seen or heard things. Visitors and staff have reported hearing strange noises, whispers, all your classics. Some have even seen full-bodied apparitions, including the ghost of a former inmate who is said to have hung himself within his cell. Others have experienced sudden drops in temperature or seen unexplained orbs of light. I always find orbs kind of boring, but I don't know, that's just me. I want to see like a ghost, The point is, this site is now abandoned and technically prohibited, so enter at your own risk. The Missouri State Penitentiary. This former prison located in Jefferson City, Missouri, that was operational for 168 years. Prison was notorious for overcrowding, inhumane conditions, and it had a very violent history, with numerous riots and incidents of inmate abuse reported throughout its existence. Today, many people believe that the Missouri State Penitentiary is haunted, with paranormal activity reported by visitors and staff. One of the most reported ghostly sightings is that of a shadowy figure who is said to haunt the gas chamber where he was executed. Other reported sightings include the ghosts of course, former inmates and guards. As I said before, the prison has a long and violent history, with countless inmates suffering and dying over its 168 years of operation. The prison was also the site of, again, numerous executions, with over 40 prisoners being put to death in the gas chamber alone. Next up is a pretty big one. It's Fremantle Prison. Fremantle Prison is a former maximum security prison located in Fremantle, Western Australia. A lot of supposedly haunted prisons in Australia, oddly enough. Like there's a ton. The prison was operational from 1855 to 1991 and housed some of the country's most notorious criminals. The prison is now a popular tourist attraction, but back when it was operational, probably not a place you'd want to go. And even still, many people believe that the Fremantle prison is haunted, with numerous reports of ghostly sightings and unexplained phenomena. One of the most commonly reported ghostly sightings is that of a former inmate who was executed at the prison in 1844. Visitors have reported seeing his ghostly figure walking the prison's corridors in the middle of the night. Other reported paranormal activity includes the sound of footsteps, slamming doors, and unexplained noises coming from empty cells. Visitors have also reported feeling a sense, again, of unease or being touched by unseen hands while in certain areas of the prison. Next up, we have another Australian prison, the Old Melbourne Gaol. This former prison located in Melbourne, Australia, was operational from 1845 until 1924. The prison is famous for its grim history, with over 130 prisoners executed on the gallows during its operation. And today, the prison is open to the public as a museum, with guided tours offering visitors a glimpse into the lives of the prisoners who were incarcerated. But when it was operational as a prison, again, you would have been warned never to go near it. It housed some of Australia's most notorious criminals and was known for its inhumane conditions. Big surprise, surprise. Prisoners' cells were tiny and overcrowded, with up to 4 inmates crammed into a single cell. The prisoners were forced to sleep on hard wooden planks without any bedding. Sanitation was almost non-existent too, with only a few communal toilets available for hundreds of prisoners. The cells were rarely cleaned, and inmates were often left to live in filth, which resulted in the spread of disease and infection. And in terms of punishment, you had solitary confinement, flogging, or even hanging for the most serious of crimes. The gallows at the prison saw the execution of over 130 prisoners, making it one of the most notorious places of execution in Australian history, which is also why it's said to be one of the most haunted prisoners in Australia. The Atlanta Prison Farm is a former correctional facility located in Atlanta, Georgia. It's known for its tough conditions and forced labor practices. Today, the prison is abandoned, and many people believe it to be haunted. One of the most commonly reported paranormal occurrences at the Atlanta Prison Farm is the apparition of a former prisoner who was killed during a failed escape attempt. Visitors are reported seeing the ghostly figure of a man running through the prison's corridors before disappearing into the thin air. Some visitors to the prison have reported feeling a sense of unease or being touched again by people that aren't really there. There have also been reports of mysterious, orbs of light. I'm not too enthused about that, but people are really obsessed with orbs. There's orb enthusiasts out there. Figures are also seen appearing in photographs taken inside the prison. Despite the supposed paranormal activity at the prison, the Atlanta Prison Farm remains a popular destination for ghost hunters and urban explorers looking to experience the, haunted history firsthand. I'd actually like to go. I'd check it. I've never been to an abandoned, supposedly haunted place before, but, no one wants to go. Anyone want to go with me? Let me know in the comments. Probably won't happen, but, Garcia Moreno Prison, located in Quito, Ecuador, was once home to some of the most notorious criminals in the country's history. It was also violent and overcrowded, not a place I would have ever wanted to visit. Today, Garcia Moreno is well known for its haunted reputation. Many visitors and locals believe that the abandoned prison is haunted by the spirits of former inmates who suffered and died there. Some of the most commonly reported paranormal activity includes strange, weird noises, voices that are disembodied, and, just this eerie feeling of being watched. Visitors have also reported seeing ghostly figures and shadows moving throughout the prison, and the harsh living conditions, frequent outbreaks of violence, and numerous deaths that occurred within the prison are believed to have left a lingering presence of unrest and suffering. And it's interesting with this one too, because apparently it's abandoned, but a lot of the stuff the prisoners left behind are still there. It almost looks like people just suddenly disappeared. Despite being closed for several years, Garcia Moreno Prison continues to draw visitors who are interested in its macabre history
And coming in at number 1, North Sentinel Island, India. North Sentinel Island is one of the most forbidden places in the world. It is where the Sentinelese tribe resides. The people occupying the island usually resolve to violence to keep their isolation still ongoing. The Sentinelese tribe have existed on the island for more than 50,000 years as per the protection given by the Indian government. This island is stringently forbidden for any visitors of any kind. Throughout history, encounters with the population have been met with violence. In 2006, they ended the lives of 2 fishermen whose boat had been dragged by the current on their shores. According to The Guardian, a 3-mile restriction zone prevents visitors from entering the territory. And according to Survival, an NGO for the rights of indigenous and tribal peoples, the Indian government has abandoned any plans to contact the Sentinels.
At number 10 is the Phoenix Archive. This subterranean fortress deep beneath the rocky expanse of Nevada and erected during the height of the Cold War wasn't just another concrete heaven, no. This was a vault of humanity's most crucial secrets, safeguarded against the specter of nuclear annihilation. Within its impenetrable walls, beyond layers of reinforced steel and labyrinth-like corridors, dwelled an archive unparalleled in significance. This repository hoarded vital government records, from the intricacies of nuclear technology to blueprints which would map the nation's restoration in case of nuclear war. Its halls echoed with the weight of knowledge, plans to rebuild a fractured world. Facilities boasted state-of-the-art climate control, shielding the documents from decay. An autonomous power grid ensured perpetual functionality of the site. Contingency plans, meticulous and exhaustive, outlined protocols for access, protection, and retrieval post-catastrophe. However, the vault remained a clandestine sanctuary, its secrets concealed from prying eyes, barring all except those sworn to its guardianship. To this very day, the exact location and specifics regarding the Phoenix Archive remains a closely guarded United States secret. secret. Obviously, we don't want people breaking in there and stealing plans for nuclear weapons. At number 9 is Kliuch in the USSR. I hope I pronounced that right. Probably not. Now, Americans weren't the only ones thinking ahead with nuclear bunkers. During the Cold War, the USSR crafted a secret haven known by a cryptic code name, Kliuch, which means key in Russian, I hope. This subterranean complex, concealed deep within the Siberian wilderness, housed top government officials in times of crisis. Kliuch is a labyrinth of reinforced tunnels and chambers boasting state-of-the-art communication systems, provisions for years, and impenetrable security measures. This covert sanctuary was an ace up the sleeve, a strategic refuge in case the geopolitical chess match turned perilous, if you get my drift. In the modern era, Kliuch has morphed from its original intent. Repurposed into a research and development center, its sophisticated infrastructure now serves as an incubator for cutting-edge technologies. Think stuff like, I don't know, advanced AI, biotech labs, and renewable energy experiments. However, the echoes of its secret past still linger, shrouded in mystery and completely off limits to the public. The tales of its former purpose remain a reminder of bygone era, while its reinvention represents a beacon of hope for progress and shared knowledge. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8 is the Raven Rock Mountain Complex. Deep within Pennsylvania lies the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, a place veiled in secrecy. This highly guarded military installation earned its moniker as the Underground Pentagon. Constructed during the Cold War era, it stood as a fail-safe command center for the Pentagon, meant to preserve government operations if nuclear conflict had erupted. Imagine a facility nestled within a mountain, harboring an intricate network of underground passages, fortified structures, and backup power grids. It's a fortress designed to persist through cataclysmic events, boasting communication systems, medical amenities, and living quarters for sustained habitation. Originally conceived for Cold War uncertainties, this complex remains active today, shrouded in mystery. Though the specifics are locked behind classified doors, what we do know is that it has an indispensable role in supporting the US government and military operations. In recent times, like during the 2020 crisis, this covert bastion was activated, emphasizing its ongoing significance in a national defense strategy. The Raven Rock Mountain Complex stands as a testament to strategic foresight, ensuring that amidst the chaos of worst-case scenarios, a hidden heaven existed, shielded, operational, and ready to facilitate crucial functions when the world teeters on the brink of catastrophe. At number 7 is the Havana Nexus. Constructed deep beneath the Cuban landscape during the tense era of the Cold War, it wasn't just a bunker, but a fortress designed to withstand the deadliest of threats. It was actually a nuclear silo camouflaged under layers of reinforced concrete and hidden miles beneath the Earth's surface. This subterranean marvel served a dual purpose, sheltering high-ranking officials during a nuclear strike and acting as a command center for launching counterattacks. Conceived as a safeguard against imminent threats, the Havana Nexus wasn't merely a silo. It functioned as a nerve center, orchestrating remote launch capabilities from multiple nuclear arsenals dispersed across the nation. This subterranean stronghold boasted an advanced communication network, encryption technologies, and fail-safe mechanisms to ensure the operational continuity amidst chaos. At number 6 is Mount Pony Culpeper in Virginia. So imagine a secret underground bunker nestled into a hillside 75 miles away from Washington, D.C. This bunker isn't just an ordinary underground shelter, it was specifically built for the top dogs of the Federal Reserve System. Named Mount Pony, it held a staggering $4 billion in currency. It's enough cash to keep things running smoothly east of the Mississippi River for a couple of years, let's say if things went haywire. Constructed in 1969, this place was like a fortress for money, safeguarding around 700 million pieces of currency. And get this, many of them were those $2 bills that weren't too popular back then. Instead of getting rid of them, the government thought, hey, let's just stash them in the bunker. Post-apocalypse, people won't really be too picky about the cash they use. Smart, I guess. Today, the once cash-filled hideaway serves a different purpose. It became an archive facility for the Library of Congress, preserving audio-visual records. But the history of how it was once a fortress for cold, hard cash remains a fascinating tale. At number 5 is Project Perseus. Deep within the heart of a remote mountain range along the North American border lies a facility once known as Project Perseus. Built during the tense era of the Cold War, this secret underground bunker was a haven for high-ranking US government officials, devised to ensure the continuity of government operations in the event of a nuclear catastrophe. With multiple levels carved into the bedrock, it housed living quarters, communication centers, medical facilities, and even a small hydroponic farm for sustenance. Access to Project Perseus was strictly regulated, requiring multiple security clearances and a labyrinth series of tunnels designed to deter any unauthorized entry. This location was so covert that even some high-ranking officials were unaware of its existence. However, as the Cold War thawed, Project Perseus evolved. evolved. Its purpose shifted towards serving as a top-secret research hub for advanced tech. The bunker became a pivotal site for developing cutting-edge defense systems and strategic planning, shielded from public knowledge. In the modern age, Project Perseus has adapted further, becoming a clandestine think tank for emerging global threats such as cyber warfare and environmental crises. It serves as a covert meeting ground for interdisciplinary experts, strategists, and policymakers, safeguarding the nation against unforeseen perils while remaining hidden from public scrutiny. That sounds like the Illuminati, holy cow. At number 4 is S4. Deep within the Nevada desert lies a shroud of mystery concealing a secret underground bunkers like S4, a site adjoining the notorious Area 51. Imagine this. A hidden hangar carved into the rugged mountainous terrain, shielded from prying eyes. Bob Lazar, a former employee, unveiled glimpses of S4's clandestine operations, recounting eerie tales of reverse-engineered alien tech. S4's mystique lies in its inaccessibility. Despite fervent curiosity, civilians are unequivocally barred from entering those enclaves. The rationale is, well, national security. The government guards these bunkers with utmost secrecy, claiming they house top-secret experiments and advanced aerospace research. Conspiracy theories persist, propelling imaginations into overdrive. Lazar's descriptions of S4's depicted eerie hangars supposedly housing unearthly aircraft is stirring a cocktail of intrigue and skepticism. At number 3 is Project Greek Island. Beneath a luxurious resort lies a secret underground bunker you've probably never allowed to see. The Greenbrier Resort, nestled in West Virginia, held a concealed post-apocalyptic hideout for 30 years. Could you believe it was right next to where people sip on martinis? Here's the kicker, even the resort's official historian didn't know about it. Imagine knowing every corner of a place but having no clue that a massive bunker is right underneath your nose. This bunker was no joke. It could shelter every member of the US House and Senate during a nuclear crisis. Picture a Walmart-sized space behind 3-foot thick concrete walls, complete with rows of bunk beds for 1,100 people. Built during the 1950s, this bunker was a product of the Cold War fears. President Eisenhower thought it'd be brilliant to hide Congress here if things went south. The best part? Thousands of folks strolled in and out for 30 years without realizing they were in a secret bunker. They just thought it was a conference facility or a meeting place for car companies. At number 2 is Fortified. Deep beneath the surface of a secluded airport in Italy lies a clandestine sanctuary known as Fortified. During the later half of the Cold War, this covert bunker wasn't built to shelter VIPs or government elites, but actually to protect priceless works of art from potential conflict and destruction. Fortified was designed to withstand any threat, featuring reinforced walls, climate-controlled chambers, and the state-of-the-art security systems. Its covert location beneath the airport offered secrecy and protection, accessible only to a select few entrusted with its existence. The protocols were stringent. Only a handful of trusted individuals had access to these rooms. Security measures included biometric scanners, passcodes, and multiple layers of authentication. At number 1, nestled within the robust granite Sharon Mountain lies the mysterious labyrinth, the NORAD complex. While many Cold War bunkers shrouded themselves in secrecy, this one stood unique. Remarkably, its construction wasn't clandestine. It was actually a public spectacle which marked its inception in 1961. 2 tons of dynamite daily sculpting a 5-acre underground behemoth. Obviously it drew some prying eyes. Reservoirs brim with water and fuel, while expansive chambers accommodate towering 3-story structures. By 1967, this subterranean marvel became fully operational, securing its pivotal role. Today, rebranded as an alternate command hub, it remains a veiled entity beyond public access. A stronghold echoing the historical tensions of a bygone era, now poised for unforeseen contingencies. Its purposeful seclusion hints at the seclusive nature of its operations, eluding the public eye, confined to the realm of speculation. This hallowed fortress embodies a peculiar legacy, a testament to human preparedness, shielded from prying eyes, veiled in government intrigue. The silence that envelops its existence speaks volumes, apart from the silence that it took to make the place to begin with.
We're starting off this list with the Shepton Mallet prison, so we're going to be talking a lot about brutal prisons that you would have been warned not to visit before they were finally shut down, so I figured I'd start things off with a prison that is no longer operational, but you may still not want to visit for another reason. Ghosts. Located in Somerset, England, Shepton Mallet is known as one of the most haunted prisons in the world and has a long storied history. It had completed construction in 1910 and was fully operational until 1990 and had changed hands several times over the course of its operation. It was a military prison in both British and American hands during World War II and then went back to British hands after that. The walls of this this historic building are said to house the tortured spirits that were once inmates of the prison, where countless hangings took place. There are ghost tours now. If you want to go at your own risk. Next on the list, we have the West Virginia Penitentiary, also known as the Moundsville Penitentiary. This was a maximum security prison located in Moundsville, West Virginia. The prison operated from 1876 to 1995, notorious for its brutal living conditions. Something that will be a running theme on the list was the prison's issues with overcrowding. For a prison that was supposed to only hold 480 inmates, 2,000 prisoners at times, probably a little much. Obviously, the cells were cramped. There was also no air conditioning or heating, but honestly, with the amount of inmates packed into the place, heating may have been the last thing anyone would have wanted. It was one of the most violent and dangerous prisons in the United States. It was plagued by riots and murders. In 1986, a major riot broke out, which brought national attention to the deplorable conditions of the prison. So, as a result of the riots and ongoing safety concerns, the West Virginia Penitentiary was finally shut down in 1995. But definitely not a place you would have been advised to go to before that. The Ohio State Reformatory, also known as the Mansfield Reformatory, was a correctional facility located in Mansfield, Ohio. The facility was operational from 1896 to 1990, and over the course of its operation, the conditions became notoriously poor and inhumane, which eventually led to its closure. The facility was overcrowded, which led to unsanitary living conditions. Multiple inmates were crammed into cells that were only meant for 2 people. The lack of space also meant that some prisoners had to sleep on the floor. And I don't know about you, I've never seen a prison with a comfy carpeted floor. These conditions were made even worse by the inhumane treatment of the inmates. Physical abuse was common among guards. Inmates were also subject to psychological abuse, including prolonged isolation and sensory deprivation. In the 1970s, a federal court declared the conditions of the reformatory were just inhumane and ordered, changes to be implemented. But these changes were just too slow to come, and it was just a little too late. It was finally shut down in 1990. Eastern State Penitentiary, located in Philadelphia, was designed to be this new and revolutionary model for a prison when it first opened in 1829. Each inmate would be isolated in their own cell, unable to communicate with other inmates. They had a small exercise yard attached to their cell, and they also had a skylight. Inmates spent 23 hours a day in their cells, with only 1 hour for exercise in the yard, which was also enclosed so that inmates couldn't see or communicate with each other. The cells were deliberately designed to be uncomfortable. They had a single hard bench and a toilet that was visible to guards at all times. So yeah, conditions pretty harsh. Over time, the prison also became overcrowded, with more and more inmates becoming crammed into the small cells. This led to a decline in the quality of life for the prisoners, which was already pretty not great, and the conditions became increasingly unsanitary and unsafe. Riots and violence were common, and the guards struggled to just maintain control over all the inmates. After 142 years of operation, the prison finally closed in 1971. Alright, so this is a German word. In German, I don't speak it, so this might come out a little janky. Hohenschönhausen Prison is a former Stasi prison located in Berlin, Germany. It was originally built in 1945, but in 1951, the Soviet secret police transferred control of the facility to the Eastern German Ministry of State Security, commonly known as the Stasi. Used it as a prison for opponents of the regime. The prison just had terrible living conditions, and the inmates were treated, of course, horribly, as you could probably imagine. They were subjected to physical violence, forced labor, but psychological torture was the main method used here. They would threaten to harm inmates' families. Sleep deprivation was also big. They were held in cramped cells without windows and were often denied food and medical treatment. Many inmates were interrogated for weeks or months on end, often resulting in false confessions. Despite the human rights abuses, in the prison, the facility remained hidden from the public for many years. It was located in a restricted area, so this is one you definitely wouldn't be visiting because there's a good chance you wouldn't have even known it existed. Inmates were not allowed to communicate with the outside world and were often held in solitary confinement to prevent them from sharing information about their treatment. Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. Next on the list, Alcatraz, aka The Rock, was known for its harsh conditions, and the prison became infamous for the brutal treatment of its inmates. Inmates were often crammed, again, into tiny windowless cells with no ventilation. The medical care was also minimal, and the food was as notoriously bad as the notorious prisoners housed within the facility. I imagine that's most prisons, though. I've been alive for a good amount of time now. When it comes to prison food, never heard good things. It's like meals you get on airplanes or hospitals. Every hack comedian across the globe just has a field day with how bad they are. It's just kind of an accepted known thing. The prison was also plagued by violence and, of course, overcrowding. Inmates were frequently attacked and abused by other prisoners, and there were several incidents of riots and escape attempts. The most famous of these was the Battle of Alcatraz in 1946. 6 inmates attempted to escape and were taken out in a violent standoff with guards. Finally, in 1963, the prison was closed due to its high operating costs and the deteriorating condition of the buildings. At number 4, we have the Bangkwang Central Prison. This one is actually still operational, although there are some particularly harsh practices that have been banned. It's still advised to veer as clear from this place as possible, though. It's pretty horrific. Located in the outskirts of Bangkok, Thailand, this prison was built to house exceptionally dangerous offenders, a good number of which are on death row. For the first 3 months of an inmate's sentence, they were chained to leg irons, and those awaiting death row were welded into them permanently until they were finally executed. But that practice has since been banned. It's one of the most infamous prisons in Asia. It was given the nickname Big Tiger, which perfectly describes how the prison seems to consume the inmates, almost like a death factory. Next up, we have Carandiru Penitentiary. Carandiru Penitentiary was one of the largest and most infamous prisons in Brazil until it was demolished in 2002. Prison was designed to house 4,000 inmates, but often had more than double that number. So obviously you had severe overcrowding, and I can only imagine how unsanitary the conditions must have been, but I don't really want to. The prison lacked basic necessities like, adequate food, clean water, proper medical care. So not only were inmates in these crowded living conditions, but there was disease and malnutrition to deal with. So anyone in their right mind would have clearly warned you never to go near this place. In 1992, there was a massive riot at the prison. 111 inmates died, and it all apparently started over a game of football. In addition to the lack of basic necessities, the prison was also known to have pretty brutal guards. Inmates were subjected to physical and psychological torture. The use of solitary confinement was also rampant, and prisoners could be locked in cramped dark cells for weeks or even months at a time. Despite repeated calls for, changes, little was done to improve conditions at the prison. It was finally closed in 2002. La Sabaneta prison, located in Zulia, Venezuela, was pretty notorious for being about as corrupt and deplorable as a prison can possibly be. Reports of torture, extortion, and violence were common in this prison, with gangs and criminal groups controlling most of the prison's activities. In fact, they basically ran the whole prison. It was a prison run by prisoners, like one step away from escape from New York. Inmates were often forced to pay protection fees to these groups in order to receive basic necessities like food and water, and it was just, again, plagued by corruption. Guards and officials often taking bribes to turn a blind eye to the kind of illegal activities of the inmates. Due to the horrific conditions at La Sabaneta prison, human rights groups and the United Nations started calling for its closure. So no doubt members of the CIA would have urged you not to visit this place. In 2013, the Venezuelan government finally announced plans to shut down the prison and transfer the inmates to other facilities. The decision had come after this massive riot happened where over 50 people lost their lives. Holmesburg prison. This one has quite the nickname, the Terror Dome. That is so dystopian sounding, it's not even funny. It sounds like something right out of Mad Max or something. And turns out, kinda was. This place didn't just get the intimidating nickname for nothing. The Terror Dome was home to countless dangerous scientific experiments conducted on the inmates. It's hard to believe some of this stuff actually happened. It's completely inhumane. The experiments were run by a dermatologist named Dr. Albert Kligman, who is this living embodiment of a mad scientist. The inmates did volunteer to be experimented on, but that's because there were small sums of money involved. A lot of them were desperate and they didn't really know the full extent or ramifications of these experiments. He tested all kinds of things on inmates. He exposed them to microwave radiation, he infected them with various skin diseases, he performed several biochemical experiments like exposure to dioxin, for example. This is a substance used in Agent Orange, so not good. Kligman described how he felt when he first entered the prison and is quoted saying, "All I saw before me were acres of skin. It was like a farmer seeing a fertile field for the first time." Very, very sickening stuff.
Number 10. Newbury Airplane Boneyard. In Newbury, Ohio, resident Walter Saplata hosted a collection of military aircrafts from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Though often called an airplane graveyard, Walter would have preferred the term sanctuary, as he was saving the aircrafts from being turned into scrap metal. The sanctuary featured approximately 20 stray aircrafts that Walter collected from his scrapyard job in Cleveland, junking thousands of warplane engines that were declared surplus, according to his son Wally Saplata in a November 2007 issue of Air and Space magazine. Walter used to open his property to the public, but in recent years, the aircraft boneyard has been kept private. He passed away in November 2010, and today it is unclear what remains of the aircraft graveyard. Number 9. Geauga Lake Amusement Park. What was once the world's largest theme park is now an overgrown land of decaying roller coasters, empty concession stands, and abandoned ticket booths. In 1925, the park cemented its place in amusement park history when the Big Dipper roller coaster was built. At the time, it was the largest roller coaster ever built, but soon tragedy struck. Following all of its success, the park experienced some setbacks. In 1942, the park was hit by a tornado, 6 people were injured, and the park experienced a lot of structural damages around $50,000. Further tragedy struck in 1952 when a massive fire engulfed parts of the park, destroying many key features of the park, including the famous dance hall, the theater, the roller rink, and the bowling alley, amounting to $500,000 in damages. From 2000 to 2004, the park was expanded and became Six Flags Ohio. From 2004 to 2007, it became known as Geauga Lake again under the ownership of Cedar Fair. But on September 21st, 2007, Cedar Fair announced that the park would not be reopening, and it has been abandoned ever since. Number 8. Cincinnati's abandoned subway. In the 20th century, Cincinnati decided to build a subway system after canals quickly became even more of a nuisance than they had been when they were bringing in trade. The plan was made in 1912 to build a 16-mile rapid transit rail system in a loop around the city, with a branch undergoing and heading downtown. More than 80% of the people of Cincinnati said yes to the new railway, but work on it didn't start until after World War I on January 28, 1920. Despite several delays, the 2-mile underground portion of the subway was completed in 1923. Proposals came and went in the 30s, but none were implemented. A 1948 study finally ended the Cincinnati subway for good, though efforts to do something with the tunnels have been constantly ongoing for more than half a century. Ideas have included a bomb shelter, a shopping and nightlife district, a massive wine cellar, and more rapid transit. The latest proposal is for another subway. I-75 was built, destroying a large segment of the underground passage, but one of the city's best kept secrets is the fact that sections of the original subway still remain, including all 4 of the stations put in during initial construction. Today, all these passages are sealed off, and they are used by Cincinnati Waterworks only. Most of the entrances have been gated or concreted over. Now, access is both illegal and extremely difficult, and no people, this is not a challenge. Number 7. Chippewa Lake Park. Tucked away in the Medina County, there's a rusted, lost, forgotten Ferris wheel. What was once once Chippewa Lake Park is now just a few piles of amusement park ruins and the lone Ferris wheel. From 1878 to 1978, the amusement park was a popular, thriving destination for family entertainment. It closed after the final owner, Continental Business Enterprises, closed it due to lack of attendance. After the park's closure, its rise and structures were left largely untouched and unmaintained for over 40 years. Today, remnants of it creepily stand abandoned, rusted, and long forgotten. And fun fact, in 2008, a cast and crew from Los Angeles filmed the horror film Closed for the Season there. Number 6. Kerr's Run Colored School. This schoolhouse for Black American children is one of the oldest remaining in southeastern Ohio. Currently, it's boarded up and overgrown with brush. The school educated children from the 1st to 8th grade, including James Edwin Campbell and James McHenry Jones, first and third presidents of what is now West Virginia State University. The school remained in operation from the late 1880s through the early 1900s, and in 2007, a historical marker was added to the school site. The sign briefly documents the history and legacy of the school. Now, the school is right beside an old church, and you can visit outside, but you shouldn't try to enter either building as they are in unsafe condition. Number 5. Franklin Castle. Rumors about the eerie castle began to surface after multiple deaths occurred in the Tideman family while living in the mansion. Hans, the father, allegedly tore down another house on the property where 4 of his children had died. His first wife, Louisa, died inside Franklin Castle in the 1890s, and he would eventually bury 3 more of his children and his mother. Since then, the location has been the site of mysterious hauntings. A family with 6 children called the Romanos had moved into the house, and on the day they moved in, 2 of their children said they'd encountered a crying girl in white on the 3rd floor. But when Miss Romano investigated, no one was there. Soon, the family started hearing haunting organ music and heavy footsteps. 2 of the older Romano children woke up one night to find something yanking blankets off their bed, and Miss Romano once awoke to find herself screaming on her bedroom floor with an unseen presence screaming beside her. A priest advised the Romanos to move out, and in 1974 they did, but the hauntings didn't stop when they left. From there, the house was sold again and again and again. Each new occupant reported strange occurrences like passing through odd vapors, hearing a child crying, or seeing a woman in black standing in the window. Unfortunately, this house is privately owned, so you cannot go and explore all the spookiness, but there is a lot of rich history here. Number 4. Warner and Swayze Observatory. The Taylor Road Observatory was gifted to the Case School of Applied Science in 1919 by the Warner and Swayze Telescope Company. The original building was a domed tower construction with a powerful telescope that took advantage of the relatively undeveloped Cleveland sky that was at the time, much more free of light pollution. The site continued to develop in the decades, growing with more buildings and facilities, but unfortunately by 1950, the growth of the nearby city was shining too much ambient light into the night sky, and the telescope had to be moved to a new location in Arizona. The Taylor Road facility continued to conduct astronomical research in the 1970s, but the site was completely abandoned in 1982. Vines and decay accumulated on the walls as time and neglect took their toll on the observatory. However, it was finally repurchased in 2005 by real estate mogul Nair Al-Mahid, who planned on returning the site into a luxury home. Unfortunately, his renovation didn't happen because in 2007 he was convicted of fraud and sent directly to jail. Today, the observatory continues to stand off Taylor Road, and it's best not to trespass and enter the building though because the area is unsafe. Number 3. The Peters Cartridge Company. The Peters Cartridge Company was once an integral part of the local munitions production industry, but now the factory is abandoned. Built in the 1860s, the large building complex was established to support the Peters Cartridge Company. The factory began producing shot and cannonballs for the Union Army during the Civil War, and then continued to produce American munitions into the 1950s. The factory had a lot of accidents though. In 1890, several train cars loaded with gunpowder collided and exploded, ending the lives of 20 factory workers. There were a number of fires and machinery accidents as well, leaving employees maimed and physically disabled. Before the factory finally closed, the site was repurposed to press vinyl for Columbia Records, but eventually nothing was made of the tall brick buildings. As the factory buildings are extremely decayed, local police supervise the Peters Cartridge Company closely. Urban exploration is not advised as floorboards are rotten and elevator shafts are empty in the buildings. Number 2. Helltown. Yep, you heard that right. Why anyone would want to go to Helltown with a name like that, I have no clue. Founded in 1806, Boston Village, aka Helltown's claim to fame was that it was standing as the oldest village in Summit County. Boston's relatively uneventful life took for a turn for the worst in 1974 when the National Park Service decided that Boston Township would be the new home for a new national park and began buying the properties of its longtime residents. The empty homes were boarded up and adorned with US no trespassing signs. But then the government quickly fell behind on its plan to create the park and the village sat neglected. The hellish aura of the area only continued to grow when rangers visiting the site became ill and covered in rashes. It was soon discovered the dump was highly polluted with toxic chemicals improperly disposed of. Also in the village there is a church which is said to have been built by Satanists complete with upside down crosses. There's an abandoned bus that is said to be host to a lingering ghost, and maybe the most outlandish of all, there is talk of mutants who were created by the chemical spill, including a monstrous snake known as the Peninsula Python. And coming in at number 1, Lima Tuberculosis Hospital. The Lima Tuberculosis Hospital was a tuberculosis sanatorium built in 1911 to deal with the leading causes of death in the United States in the early 20th century. Opening in 1911, it held 24 beds originally and was remodeled in 1927 to hold 158 beds. The capacity changed to 138 patients after an additional remodel occurred in 1957. The hospital was then renamed Ottawa Valley Tuberculosis Hospital in 1960, and by 1970 it was nearly empty. In 1972, the use of the second floor was shuttered and the entire hospital closed its doors in 1973. While the hospital was winding down operation on January 10, 1972, it was agreed that the hospital would be transferred to the Allen County Board of Commissioners. Because of its relatively remote location and the use of hard-to-clean-up substances such as asbestos in the construction of the original 1911 building, the city of Lima did not prioritize demolition of the building. It's rumored to be haunted as well, and around Halloween of 2020, a large surge of trespassing at the site occurred, which led to an increased police presence and crackdown on trespassers. Number 3. Surtsey Island, Iceland. Surtsey is a small island situated on the south coast of Iceland. It was created as a consequence of a volcanic explosion that continued for 4 years. Surtsey is also known globally for being the newest island on the globe. It was formed just 55 years ago, which meant scientists had the unique opportunity to observe the birth and evolution of an ecosystem from scratch. This fascinating event is precisely what makes its access restricted to the rest of the world. It all began in 1963 when a violent volcanic eruption 32 kilometers south of Iceland resulted in the formation of Surtsey. Bacteria, fungi, and molds were the first to arrive on the island. Subsequently, the number of animal and plant species increased exponentially. According to UNESCO, it's estimated that around 89 species of birds and 335 invertebrates populate the area. In order to not alter this development, only researchers are allowed to visit the island, which again makes a lot of sense. They want to protect this island, but the whole idea of this is just really cool.
At number 10, Bohemian Grove. The only way you're getting to this super exclusive club is if you're a very powerful man. Bohemian Grove is a private club for the most powerful men in the US, located on a restricted 2,700-acre campground on Bohemian Ave in Monte Rio, California. Every July, its members travel to the grounds for a 2-week retreat to relax and specifically not network. There is little known about what happens during the retreat. One thing powerful men are good at is keeping things hidden. The club's all-male membership includes many artists, musicians, prominent business leaders, government officials, former presidents, and senior media executives. Members are also allowed to bring guests and even rent out the grounds for its off-season private events. If your interest has been sparked, good luck getting anywhere near Bohemian Grove. It's protected by security year-round, with the club employing ex-military personnel to secure the area. They also utilize high-end equipment like thermal cameras and vibration sensing alarm systems. Some presidents that have visited are George Bush, Richard Nixon, and Ronald Reagan. Basically, there's no chance of getting in unless you have some pretty important friends. Number 9, the Coca-Cola Vault. Coca-Cola is one of the biggest brands in the world. The corporation was founded in 1892, so the recipe has been around for over 120 years. It definitely has undergone some tweaks since the 1800s, but now it doesn't contain illegal substances, so it really only changed for the better. The secret formula is located inside World of Coca-Cola in Atlanta, Georgia. While you can absolutely visit the museum itself, showcasing the history of the company, the actual vault that holds the formula is off limits. The actual recipe is located inside of a metal box inside of a 6.6 foot high vault, which is then further protected by a barrier, and the entire area has surveillance with armed guards. The door to the vault can only be opened by a keypad with a hand scanner. It sounds a bit extreme to take all these measures over the recipe for Coke, but with the company bringing in over $42 billion in 2022, the extra security makes total sense. I never thought about seeing the formula of Coke, but now that I know it's in a highly guarded fancy safe, I've never wanted to see something more. Number 8. Granite Mountain Records Vault. The world's largest collection of genealogical records lives in a secure vault located quite literally in the mountains near Salt Lake City, Utah. The Granite Mountain Records Vault was built in 1965 by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The purpose of the vault is to preserve and protect records of importance to the church, like its vast collection of family history microfilms. This is an extremely secure facility with no public access allowed. What we do know is that it's home to 2.4 million rolls of microfilm containing approximately 3.5 billion images of family history records. I guess when the Mormon Church says they're a family-centered faith, they aren't kidding. The church is collecting all of these microfilmed images in order to digitize them and turn them into digital records available through FamilySearch.org. Some people think there is more going on in that facility than we're being told, with conspiracy theories and suspicions surrounding the whole operation. The vault is located under 700 feet of solid mountain stone with 3 tunnels and 4 cross tunnels inside, spanning over 65,000 square feet. They also have reinforced entrance doors that weigh 14 tons each and were said to be able to withstand a nuclear blast. These factors are what really led people to being skeptical of their operations because A, that's a lot of room for converting microfilms, B, that's a lot of security for the names of the deceased, and C, more recent images of the vault seem to show they've expanded the facility to now have 5 entrances instead of 3. Some thoughts surrounding what else is stored there are significant artifacts, ancient relics, or even a bunker. Maybe the expansion is just for expanding operations, but who knows, maybe they really are hiding something else in that vault. At number 7, Area 51. The widely known name refers to that of a highly classified United States Air Force facility located in Nevada, which is highly prohibited to those without authorization. The fact that it's a government facility that is super off limits and highly guarded has led people to famously associate Area 51 with aliens. For decades now, the facility has been the eye of a conspiracy theory storm, with people convinced that aliens and their technology exist behind its walls. Being told you can't go somewhere or that something is a secret only makes you more interested to know about it. There have been many books, TV shows, and even plans online for massive raids trying to get a glimpse of what lies beyond the very prominent warning signs, to no success. Upon looking at Area 51, it appears like the only protection against unwanted guests is the many warning signs, but apparently not a single thing goes unnoticed. Beyond the gates, cameras see every angle, watching everything below. Locals say the base knows every desert tortoise and jackrabbit that hops the fence. No matter how interested you may be, only a select few have access to what goes on there, causing so many theories and speculations. Who knows, maybe it's alien experiments, maybe it's the most mundane, boring work we could ever imagine. Either way, we aren't going to be finding out anytime soon. Number 6. Cheyenne Mountain Complex. It's located at Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station, or CMAF, within the Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, Colorado. The CMAF falls under Air Force Base Command and hosts the activities of several tenant units. At the height of the Cold War, the idea of a hardened command center was thought of as a defense against long-range Soviet bombers. The Army Corps of Engineers supervised the excavation of Cheyenne Mountain and the construction of an operational center. The facility became fully operational as the NORAD Combat Operations Center in early 1967. Since it's a big old place for government stuff, Cheyenne Mountain Complex is protected and closed to the public. It's located under 2,000 feet of granite with 6 tunnels, each 3 stories tall. It's also secured against seismic activity and nuclear explosions. So basically, it's pretty high on the list of places I would like to be during a zombie apocalypse. It has 2 main blast doors which are 3.5 feet thick and weigh over 20 tons. These massive doors close in times of emergency and have only been shut once during 9/11. Since this complex is home to so many important operations like a space control center and national warning facility, it's locked and guarded to the nines. That being said, since we know some of what's going on down there, it's far less desirable to visit. At number 5. Tillamook Rock Lighthouse. Located on the northern Oregon coast of the United States, also known as Terrible Tilly or just Tilly, Tilly, this is one lighthouse that you can't visit. Tilly gained its nickname from the ferocious storms and difficulties facing the lighthouse keepers. Tillamook Rock rises nearly 100 feet from the sea and is located 20 miles south of the mouth of the Columbian River. Building the lighthouse in the first place was rough. The first person hired to take on the project was master mason and lighthouse builder John Trewavis. Unfortunately, John ended up being swept out to sea after falling off the rock before he could get far. After this incident, craftsmen were reluctant to work on the lighthouse, but construction foreman Charles Ballantyne stepped up with a crew of 8. Once on the rock, the men worked under horrible conditions. One day the wind was so bad it swept away their supply house and left workers stranded for 16 days. After preparing the rock, the construction of Tilly took over 100 days to complete. Tillamook Rock Lighthouse began operations in January 1881. With a starting budget of just $50,000, Tilly cost closer to $125,000 in the end. Duty at Tillamook Rock meant isolation, horrible storms, and hazardous environment. On top of that, supplies sent to the rock were often delayed for days or even weeks. It was decommissioned in 1957 due to the extensive wear and tear. The lighthouse has bounced between a few private owners since shutting off its light. Even if you wanted to visit Tilly today, you'd have to resort to a helicopter because of the harsh waters. The rock is even off limits to its owners come time for the seabird nesting season. At number 4, Dulce Base. Like Area 51, Dulce Base is the subject of conspiracy theories claiming that a jointly operated human and alien underground facility exists. Apparently, the facility lies under the Archuleta Mesa Mountain on the Colorado-New Mexico border near the town of Dulce, New Mexico. On the surface, Dulce is just your average small town, so small it doesn't even have a single traffic light. According to the bizarre claims, the small town is just the tip of the iceberg. The alleged massive underground facility is said to be home to unimaginable experiments and technologies. For the extreme alien believers, we are all overlooking a high-tech world full of aliens. According to the conspiracy theorists, the Dulce subterranean base is a 7-story compound that houses human-animal hybrids, human-alien hybrids, and extremely advanced technologies. It is possible that it's all made up, but if the government really was experimenting with aliens, it would make sense that they do it under a mountain near a very small town. One thing I find interesting about the Dulce base is that these theories are not new. First claims of the base's existence date all the way back to the 1930s. The rumors of alien intervention didn't start up until the 70s when a former state police trooper named Gabe Valdez documented unexplained cattle mutilations in the area. There have also been claims of UFO sightings and other paranormal activity in the area over the years. Secret aliens or not, it sounds like there's definitely something strange going on in Dulce that I don't want to look any further into. Number 3, Fort Knox. I bet you've heard at least once in your life someone make a reference to something being harder to get into than Fort Knox, and there's a reason for this. Fort Knox is a United States Army installation in Kentucky, south of Louisville. The reason it's so hard to get into Fort Knox is because of the Bullion Depository, a fortified vault located adjacent to the Fort Knox Army Post. It's operated by the United States Mint Police, and it's super well known for its physical security. The depository was built back in 1936 and is operated by the United States Department of the Treasury. The excessive security is in place because it's home to over half the entire country's gold reserves. Early shipments of gold totaling almost 13,000 metric tons were escorted by combat cars to the depository. In the past, it's also been home to other precious items like the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of Independence. Fort Knox is so heavily protected and secure that the vicinity is off limits to visitors. Even the president has limitations. In fact, only one president has ever been allowed entry, and that was Franklin Roosevelt back in 1943. Along with the heavy-duty physical barriers and fences, the government pays $5 million annually just for security. Number 2, North Brother Island. This tiny island in New York City is located smack dab in the middle of the East River between the Bronx and Rikers Island. It was the site of the infamous Riverside Hospital for quarantinable diseases. If you've ever heard of Typhoid Mary, this is the place where she spent her final days and finally succumbed to her namesake illness in 1938. After World War II, the island was repurposed as housing for veterans and their families. Then it transitioned to being a rehabilitation center for adolescent substance use, which ended up closing in the 60s amid allegations of fraud. After being home to many dark but important facilities, the entire North Brothers Island was closed permanently to the public and became a bird sanctuary. That being said, photographer Christopher Payne was able to go to the island in 2006 after being granted access by the New York City Department of Recreation. The photos he captured of the island are a little haunting, especially with its history of rehab rehab centers and hospitals for the disease. These photos are interesting to see, but do not make me want to visit the abandoned island even if I could. The whole place looks like it's been taken over by, well, birds, and it's crazy that it's so close to the hustle and bustle of the city. Many people have stepped foot on the North Brother Island over the years, but now the only way to get a glimpse is through Payne's photos or if you have wings and a beak. And at number 1, Niihau Island. This island has been privately owned for over 100 years with only an estimated 170 residents. The invite-only island sparked so much interest from travelers across the world due to its extreme exclusivity, commonly referred to as Hawaii's Forbidden Island. It is the westernmost main and 7th largest inhabited island in all of Hawaii. Niihau is also a crucial habitat for some endangered plant species. The island was purchased by Elizabeth St. Clair in 1864 for just $10,000, which would be the equivalent to about $170,000 in 2021. St. Clair purchased it from the Kingdom of Hawaii, and the ownership has been passed down for generations, currently belonging to her grandsons, the Robinson brothers. The island is off limits to all outsiders unless the brothers Bruce and Keith personally invite you for a visit. The people of Niihau are noted for their remarkable craftsmanship and mainly speak in Hawaiian. The reason they have kept the island off limits to the outside world is due to a promise made to a former Hawaiian king. The promise was to protect the island from the mainland and the rest of the world to maintain the beloved heritage, and that's exactly what they've done. To this day, Niihau has rejected the use of modern technologies and survives without electricity, running water, internet, doors, restaurants, paved roads, or cars. A modern-day ancient civilization. It would be fascinating to see how they do things over on Niihau, but it's nice to know they've kept their promise for so long.
Number 10, the Stranahan House. Okay, you don't want to be stranded at the Stranahan House, that's for sure. Fort Lauderdale, it has a few haunted hidden gems, apparently. It's always Florida, always something going on over there. The oldest house just happens to be the most haunted. What do you know? I could have guessed that, that's for sure. The house's OG owner was that of Frank Stranahan, and today if you visit ye old stomping grounds, well, you might actually catch a photo of Frank himself. Yeah, it's said that he still oversees the place as a ghost. He regularly shows up in guests' photos, so I don't know, maybe he likes the attention. Maybe he likes photobombing, I'm not sure. I suppose being trapped in the same house for all of eternity gets a little boring. I mean, sure, fair. Ivy Stranahan, Frank's late wife, well, she's also made an appearance or two. Yeah, true love is haunting the same house together. That's really it. Guests have felt a cold hand on their shoulder, and her perfume still lingers in the hallways, so must have been some good strong stuff, that's for sure. Now, it's not all fun and games with the phantom family members. Augustus Stranahan, Frank's father, well, his ghost, he likes to throw books from time to time over in the library, so let's avoid that library, shall we? Let's do it. Next, number 9, the Tampa Theater. If you're a theater kid, you're gonna love this one. You're gonna be singing West Side Story tunes in no time. Tampa Theater opened back in 1926. Today, the theater is said to be haunted by a woman that was struck and, sadly, her life was taken by a carriage on the property. By a carriage. What a sad, slow way to go. This was actually before the theater was built, keep that in mind. So her spirit had been there for a while, and then it was built, and then immediately it's haunted. The janitors are like, what? It's been one day, how is this possibly haunted? If you go to Tampa Theater today, you might catch a glimpse of a woman in a white gown walking across the mezzanine hallway. Imagine telling somebody to sit down during a show and then they just disappear. You're like, okay, that works just as well. That's great, thank you. Tampa Theater, of course, has leaned into these claims. Now they offer the Ghosts of Tampa Theater Tour, of course, where you can line up and pay money to, you know, go and get spooked, I guess. Now, guests can learn about its haunted history and it's fun, but still, would you go? Would you pay money to go somewhere that's knowingly haunted? I wouldn't. Definitely not. Sound off below, would you? The comments are like, yeah, I would. Gary Sinise. I'd definitely go. What have I done? Number 8, the Biltmore, Florida Hotel. Again, it's always Florida. What's going on over there? Another room to avoid at all costs. This time it's the entire property. Let's just turn right instead of left. First of all, do you like staying at a hotel? Some people love it. Some people find it relaxing. I can't sleep at all. I always get sick for some reason. I like get the shivers. I don't know. Maybe I'm staying in all the haunted hotels. Must be me. The Biltmore Hotel in the city of Coral Gables is one of the most haunted hotels ever. It all started back in 1926 during initial construction. The Biltmore witnessed a foul killing on the 13th floor. Again, during construction, these things are always doomed. The Biltmore also turned into a military hotel during World War II, and then it was closed afterwards and ultimately abandoned later in 1968. So yeah, tons of ghosts walking down those hallways. The city renovated the hotel back in the 1980s, but again, didn't take long for ghost stories to spread. Of course, the most activity is on the 13th floor. So if you check this one out, really double down, really go for it and stay a night at the 13th floor. I can't believe some buildings don't have a 13th floor. Well, they do, but everyone wants to pretend like they don't. You know what I mean? We all know. Going up that staircase, you're counting, you're like, oh, they lied. Number 7, Whaley House. Located in San Diego and built in 1857. The Whaley House is an example of why you don't build your house on cursed lands. Yeah, let's go to the next plot over. This one seems a little occupied. A little Elden Rings action going on here. The site that this family's home was built on was also the location of San Diego's first ever public gallows. Ah, nice. What a fun fact that is. Let's move in. And apparently, right after moving in, Thomas Whaley said he could hear the footsteps of Yankee Jim Robinson, who had lost his life in the same gallows only 4 years prior. That's terrifying. How do you not know? 4 years ago? Come on. After the family had settled, they had all began to experience a bunch of family tragedies, most of which actually happened inside the house. Inside the house. Hence the cursed land aspect, right? Now we're kind of putting it together. As of today, the Whaley House is a museum, and apparently the family members continue to haunt that said museum. So sadly, you can't live there anymore or sleep there, but you have to pay a little pretty penny and go and take a look and take a sniff. I don't know why I said take a sniff, but sure, some people like to smell old history. Why not? Number 6, British Museum's adult room. All right, get those kids out of here for this one. Send them to bed. Put on your Peep and Tom glasses for this one. I don't know, that's weird. The British Museum, they have a long, very long adult-themed room, and it's exactly what you think. The museum itself dates back to the mid-1700s, right? So since its initial opening, the museum only let 10 people in at a time. It's like, hey, too much content in here, too much scandalous content for that many eyes. One at a time. Everyone's sweating, getting all weird. Now, of course, it holds many more every day. Some parts of this collection, not everybody can handle. For example, in the Victorian era, the museum had a secret room for obscene objects, or objects that are deemed perverse. Things that, the public can't really see without a warning. There's a part of a temple wall that shows the dirty deed itself. There's a big painting of, just some weird movements with people. Everyone's all wet. It's intimate. Intimate ancient yoga right there. Hide their eyes. In the same collection, there also includes a Roman terracotta lamp that depicts a naked woman on a crocodile. Ooh, where should we put that lamp? Maybe the living room. The Cabinet of Obscene Objects. Sounds like a Harry Potter book, doesn't it? That's fascinating. You know what? I lied. Check this room out. Don't avoid this one. Let's go peep our heads in. Number 5, flesh-eating beetle room. Ugh, if you don't like bugs, you're gonna hate this one. Sorry, Jen, if you're watching. This is gonna suck. Enough about ancient butts and ancient, yoga, hot yoga. Let's move on to some of the weird stuff, shall we? For example, in Chicago's Field Museum, this one is full of secret rooms. One's really disgusting. One of these rooms, you'll never catch me in, that's for sure. The flesh-eating beetle room. Do I have to say anything more? I don't know. Can you imagine this exhibit on a field trip? I would throw up immediately. I'd have to call my parents at like 10:51 a.m. The Field Museum uses hide beetles to clean its specimens. Yeah, so they're alive. Real beetles are in there working. 9 to 5 in there. Yeah, in order to get each of these carcasses ready for showtime, these beetles are on the clock. They're business oriented. In just a few hours, a small rodent can be completely cleaned, right down to the bone, gone. Like me after I eat wings, just nothing left, just a corpse. Imagine this is where Peter Parker got his powers. Ew, so gross. Number 4, the secret insect room. Ugh, more? Come on. If you're at Liverpool and for some reason that last one you enjoyed, well, here we go. There's more bug rooms. Here we go. Do I have the tea for you? Inside the World Museum in Liverpool lies a secret room, and inside it contains around 1 million insects. Now, this time they're dead, but it's still pretty bad. I'm itchy just thinking about this one. This collection began back in 1855. The 13th Earl of Derby, not the 12th, the 13th Earl of Derby, he's like, you know what I need? A cupboard full of shiny bugs. That's what we should focus on instead of, feeding people that don't have food. So now, thousands of specimens hide in this room, including the world's largest beetle and the world's largest moth. Again, disgusting. Imagine Night at the Museum, but it takes place in this one. Ugh. Ben Stiller's like, yeah, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it rated R. Number 3, room 206. Yeah, this one gives Stephen King's 1408 vibes. You're gonna absolutely love it. I'm not sure you're ready, honestly. Next time you visit, you guessed it, Florida, make sure that you read every customer review before you check into every hotel, okay? Room 206 at the Super on International Drive. Apparently it's super haunted. Yeah, you wanna super avoid this one. I don't know, I tried 3 there, didn't work. Guests have reported the bed shaking in the middle of the night, which is not great for trying to get your beauty sleep. And they've also reported freezing cold air even though the AC was not turned on. Maybe that's why I was shivering this whole time. Oh God. And the worst of all, guests have seen their bed look as if somebody was just laying there, like indents, even though it's perfectly made before checking in. That's terrifying. Can ghosts squat? We've got a couple of ghost squatters in our room. We gotta change rooms. Number 2, King Tut's belongings. The new Grand Egyptian Museum finally opened to the public back in 2021, and while that's quite recent, the contents displayed inside certainly are not. For the first time in history, all of King Tut's artifacts will be on display. See, prior to this museum being opened, we only saw about 150 artifacts from his tomb, and they all went on tour, like a band. They just went around the world and just haunted different locations with old ancient Egyptian curses. But now this museum will stay in one place. Now it will house thousands of artifacts in a beautiful space that pans over 7,000 square meters. It's massive. Now, cut back to the initial discovery of King Tut's tomb, November 4th, 1922. Ancient history was unearthed. A team of researchers led by British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered this entrance to King Tut's tomb, and it was fascinating. They found history right there, literally at the front steps. They're like, hey, let's go in. Why not? What'll happen? Only 3 weeks later, King Tut's actual tomb was unearthed, and history hasn't been disturbed in over 3,000 years. Then we came in and made him an exhibit. Now he's just, there's all his stuff. There we go. This discovery spawned the curse of the pharaohs. You've probably heard of this. Because almost every expert involved in the initial discovery, they all experienced horrible luck. Howard Carter, the archaeologist who discovered the tomb, he gave a paperweight to his friend Bruce Ingham as a gift. Now that paperweight in question was a mummified hand wearing a bracelet. Why you'd give that to anybody as a gift, let alone a paperweight, is beyond me. Inscribed on that bracelet read the phrase, "Cursed be he who moves my body." Ingham's house, believe it or not, burned to the ground not long after receiving that gift. Who could have predicted that one? And then when he tried to rebuild the home, it was destroyed again in a flood. Yeah, talk about bad luck. That's why you don't steal cursed things. And finally, number 1, St. Augustine's Lighthouse. The St. Augustine Lighthouse is located in Florida and was built between 1871 and 1874 and was considered Florida's first official lighthouse. Before then, everybody was like, I can't see. And since then, there have been several tragic events over the following years, but even during initial construction, there were several freak accidents on site that lead many to believe that it's haunted today. Today, said spirits are still lurking about. Sightings of shadowy figures are common, but one time, somebody saw a hand come through the tower door, like a floaty hand, like from Idle Hands. How terrifying is that? Can you imagine? That's horrible. Several guests have also reported furniture moving around on its own. One person even said that they had some of their arm hairs plucked off while in the basement, which is a little personal if you ask me, honestly. Another guest even felt someone grab their ankle at one point while walking down a hallway, which actually caused them to trip and fall.
Coming up in our number 10 spot, we of course have Chernobyl. Chernobyl is a place in Kyiv, Ukraine that is most known for its accidental power plant explosion that polluted the whole city of Pripyat with radiation in 1986. Apparently, Chernobyl is one of the most impressive places for urban exploration, even though it is not encouraged. There is mixed opinion as to whether the radiation level is fully safe there, as people in the towns near it have seen a life expectancy decrease and have experienced other health concerns that could be pointed to the radiation. The complete cleanup isn't projected to be finished until 2065. I will be 75. So personally, I wouldn't recommend it, but go at your own risk. Apparently, exploring the abandoned town of Pripyat and walking through the Chernobyl exclusive zone really gives you the feeling of stepping into a post-apocalyptic world. I'm truly a massive Hunger Games fan, so this would be rather tempting to me. If you're enjoying this video so far, please go ahead and smash that like button, as it really helps us out. In our number 9 spot, we have Bulgaria's Buz Lugza. Okay, honestly, if I felt so inclined to be adventurous and possibly risk being arrested, don't know if I ever would feel that way, but say I was going through a quarter-life crisis and wanted to do something crazy, I would definitely visit the Buz Lugza. This place looks like a spaceship. It probs is, and they fooled the country into thinking that it was a place for the Communist Party when it was active. The people of Bulgaria literally call it the flying saucer, so I think all signs point to it clearly being from an alien planet. In 1868, it was the place of the final battle between Bulgarian rebels and forces of the Ottoman Empire. Inside, it is completely destroyed, but if you're able to imagine what it could have been like before it was destroyed, then you could probably see that it truly does check out as a spaceship. In our number 5 spot, we have Pravsika Brana. The Pravsika Brana is a very famous Czech Republic arch. It was available to the public until 1982 1972 when it became forbidden for anyone to visit. Why? Well, because all of the visitors that were coming to see it were causing a bit of wear essentially, and it was increasing the likelihood of the structure collapsing over time. So to reduce the likelihood, tourists were cut off. Of course, they can still view it, they just can't go on it. It's not guaranteed that it won't eventually collapse, but the government hopes that it will at least give us more time with this beautiful structure. Well, that's a good reason to not go urban exploring here. Let's keep this arch standing as long as possible. In our number 4 spot, we have the tomb of Shenxi Huang. I mean, the pictures of this site, they're unreal. But unfortunately, this place is off limits to everyone. Yes, all of you urban explorers out there, don't even bother. It is forbidden by the Chinese government as they are trying to preserve their cultural heritage and pay respect to the man buried there. Also, apparently there's nothing we can do technology-wise to prevent the tomb's destruction if it's excavated right now. So that's another reason to limit the amount of visitors until that happens. It makes sense, although quite sad, as this place looks epic. There is a reproduction of Shenxi Huang's army, known as the Terracotta Army, made of clay. Intensely amazing. This place was a massive discovery that was only found in 1974. Hopefully it will be open to the public in my lifetime. We hope. For number 2 spot, we have Poveglia. The Poveglia is a small island that is located between Venice and Lido, and it is strictly forbidden to everyone. But perhaps for a very, very good reason, as it certainly has a bloody past. It used to be a plague quarantine station that has had over 160,000 infected people, many who ended up passing away on the island. It is said that about 50% of the island's soil is really just the remains of all the humans that passed away there. Yikes. I'm surprised that this too hasn't been made into a movie yet. Many moons after the plague, the island was then turned into a mental hospital before being shut down completely. Definitely a place you may not want to go exploring. In our number 5 spot, we have the Wyoming Territorial Prison. This prison was built in 1872 and was made to confine the growing number of criminals in the area. But not all went exactly according to plan. People kept escaping. This is wild to me. I didn't realize that any prison had a genuine problem with this. I thought when people escaped it was like a one-off thing. Anyways, yep, people would escape, and they had a bit of an overcrowding issue as well. A famous name from the prison though is a man named Julius Greenwald, who was sentenced for taking the life of his wife. He apparently had a quote-unquote expert hand when it came to rolling cigars, and boy would he smoke a lot of them. Apparently Julius's cigar scent can still be smelt at the prison in the place where he died in 1901. Passing away in 1901 from heart failure, Julius's ghost still lingers about in the place he died. It is said that you can also smell the cigar scent in the corridors leading to where he died. Interesting. Well, smoke and cigar/cigarette scents do tend to linger, so it makes sense. In our number 4 spot, we have the Carabanchel Prison. The Carabanchel Prison, located in Madrid, Spain, was originally constructed by political prisoners after the Spanish Civil War between 1940 to 1944. It was known as one of the biggest prisons in Europe until it was closed down in 1998. The prisoners were made to do slave labor when it was active, and after it was closed, it became known as an abandoned haunted building. In 2008, the Spanish government decided that it needed to be destroyed because no one should go onto the grounds. Probably because it was that haunted, but most likely because it was just a sad part of their history that they want to forget. Apparently a hospital and apartments are now in the area, and it hasn't been confirmed if people ever feel any paranormal activity, but we're gonna say probably. In our number 3 spot, we have the William Porter Reformatory. The William Porter Reformatory is located in Tokaji, South Africa. This is a bit of a disturbing prison because it was not exactly for adults. Most of the prisoners were actually quite young, which honestly makes me ill to think about. They were kept in isolation cells, and for what purpose? Oh, just a racially driven one. To further the separation between the black and white working class community, and to teach the prisoners to not interact and to socially know their place. Thankfully, this horrific place was closed down in 1910, but of course the energy and sadness must still surround the building. Seeing the pictures of this place honestly breaks my heart and makes me the most sad. In our number 2 spot, we have the Old Charleston Jail. The Old Charleston Jail is a jail that was built in 1802 in South Carolina, USA. This is an abandoned place that you may actually want to visit if you're someone who's very into supernatural phenomena, as this is a place that is known for its ghostly encounters. Ooh, yeah, I want to go. This jail was actually home to a very notable prisoner, Lavinia Fisher. Lavinia and her husband, John Fisher, were owners of a Charleston Inn called the 6 Mile Wayfarer House, and they were sent to prison as apparently they were luring businessmen into their inn and then killing them and stealing their belongings. They say that her ghost is haunting this jail, and reports of many supernatural noises, smells, and sightings have occurred there. So maybe you don't want to visit this place. Something about this woman's story makes me think she's the type of ghost to want to possess you. But I have a very active imagination, so who knows. If I ever visit, I'ma go straight to a priest and get an exorcism afterwards. That's what I would do. Spot, we have Lake Shawnee Amusement Park. Lake Shawnee Amusement Park was located in West Virginia, and it was open from 1926 till 1966. This park ended up closing because it began to hold a horrible reputation, as a few killings happened on its grounds. One accidental, one seemingly not, and apparently others that haven't been confirmed, but nonetheless, this began to make visitors uncomfortable, and so the park shut down. People believe it to be haunted by the ghosts of the young ones that passed away there, but also people believe that the land was cursed from the start, as there was a quarrel between a First Nation tribe and a European settler once in this area. It had a brutal history from 1783, where the Shawnee Native American tribe ended up killing the offspring of the first man that made a home in their area, named Mitchell Clay. But there is so much more to the story, as apparently the park was built on a Native American burial ground, and many young ones were buried there. People believe these ghosts could be haunting the park too, but in any case, no one can deny that the park, even today, feels haunted. In our number 8 spot, we have Joyland Amusement Park. Located in Kansas, the Joyland Amusement Park was one of the biggest when it opened in 1949. 57 acres, in fact. It was doing very well until a lot of ride-related deaths started occurring. Then there was a massive scandal where an employee was killed by some people visiting the park, and that caused a lot of unwanted press. Then an employee was injured by a roller coaster, and finally someone fell off of a Ferris wheel in 2004. As you can imagine, all of these incidents led to lawsuits and eventually financial ruin for the park, where they then had to shut down. Apparently the park was purchased in 2018 with plans to turn it into a concert venue / wedding venue, but man, I hope they have had like 10 priests bless this ground first before they open it. In our number 7 spot, we have Dreamland Park. The Dreamland Park was located in Pennsylvania, and it opened in 1939. When this park opened, it didn't have too many attractions as you would imagine a typical amusement park to have. The park only had a roller rink, a band theater, a few rides, and a small car race track, and some picnic areas. In August of 1969 though, 2 people by the name of Marilyn Scheckler and Glenn Eckert were killed on the premise, and that is where the park began to have a reputation for being associated with gangs, gambling, and dark dealings. Another killing took place on the grounds in the 90s, and that is what led to the published non-fiction novel about the park. In our number 6 spot, we have the Magic Harbor Park. Here is another abandoned park with a dark history. Magic Harbor, located near Myrtle Beach, opened in 1954. In 1976, one of the owners and his son were fatally injured by an employee of the park, which resulted in them both passing away. After this horrible incident, the wife of the park owner did not want to continue running the park, so it went into foreclosure and the bank took over. It was eventually bought out again, but in 1984, another tragedy happened where a young girl passed away after falling off a ride, and the park was sued for $12 million. With its poor reputation and now horrible financial issues, the park eventually closed. In our number 5 spot, we have Holy Land, USA. This is an old Christian theme park, as you may have deduced from the title. Holy Land. It opened in 1960, and apparently the theme park contained replicas of famous scenes from the Bible, such as the Garden of Eden, the Last Supper, etc. A large cross was placed on a hill and a big sign with its name on it that is apparently hard to miss if you're driving along Interstate 84 in Waterbury, Connecticut. Apparently the park was a hit and a Baptist owned it. Makes sense. And he originally closed the park in the 80s to work on expanding it, but then he passed away. Nuns of the area were maintaining the grounds, but over the years it got worse and worse due to vandalism and an unfortunate killing that took place under the cross. In our number 4 spot we have Brandywine Springs. The Brandywine Springs amusement park opened in 1886 in Williamton, Delaware, and it was a good example of what you can imagine as good, clean fun. The park had a wooden roller coaster, a train, restaurants, a castle house, and much more. The park was a hot spot until a tragedy occurred when an employee and another male was fatally injured, and this certainly changed the park for good. The park closed in 1923, around the time that cars became more available to the average person, which made it easier for people to travel, and then they would find new adventures elsewhere and not spend their time/money at the park. Apparently the park is in ruins at the moment, but there are plans to put up signs and photographs of where the major attractions once stood so that people that walk through it can learn a little about its history. Well, that's fun. Maybe you're not prohibited from visiting this one. In our number 3 spot we have Kojonuma Leisureland. Once a very popular amusement park in Japan, eventually it turned into something quite dark. It had all of the fun amusement park rides and was beloved by many, despite its ghost stories. Unlike many of the other parks here, the park only closed in 2000 due to a drop in visitors, which is believed to be the cause of Japan's declining birth rate and the economic crisis. However, there is a strange urban legend about the park that is still told today that has urban explorers wanting to visit the land. Apparently there is a lake by the park that is known to have a large snake population, and as the legend goes, a pregnant woman who lived near there gave birth to a serpent baby who escaped into the water, and every night the woman would hear the baby cry. It drove her mad, and she ended up taking her own life in the lake, and it was her ghost that people believed haunted the park. Dark. People have reported hearing her and her serpent baby's cries. In our number 2 spot we have Rocky Point Amusement Park. Rocky Point Amusement Park, located in Warwick, Rhode Island, opened in 1847 and didn't close till 1995. It had a long history of over 150 years of being active, and it attracted a lot of very famous guests who performed there over the years. Some of the later guests you would know include Pat Benatar, the Ramones, and a personal fave of mine, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It only had one killing on site ever recorded, and it was in 1893 when a clinically insane man fatally injured his daughter. The park was so popular that eventually people forgot about the incident. This is one park that would honestly just be sad to visit because it seems like it was so cool. I don't wish sadness for you, so don't go and visit it. In our number 1 spot we have Gulliver's Kingdom. Gulliver's Kingdom, an amusement park in Japan that opened in 1997 near the base of Mount Fuji, is probably the creepiest park I have ever seen. I mean, the park was based off of a book called Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, and so I bet the park wouldn't feel as creepy for people that have read the book. The park famously had a giant lying on its back, a picture that we can assume is taken from the book. The park existed for only about 10 years before it closed, due to the park just not resonating with the people as the owners thought it would. Honestly, an idea like this feels too big for the 90s. People are way more open now creatively, so I bet it would be a hit these days. Instagram was invented a little too late. At this point the park has been demolished, so it's no longer a site for urban explorers, but the pictures of this very chilling park will live on in our brains forever.
Coming in at number 10, the Elite Disney 33 Club in Anaheim, California. Disney might be open to the public, but this area of Disney is actually off limits and reserved only for the elite of the elite. In Disneyland, located in Anaheim, California, there is an area that was built by Walt Disney, but he unfortunately never got the chance chance to enjoy it due to his death before construction was finished. Now, the club was originally created as a place for him to entertain important guests. Now this area is still for important guests as the entry is invite only, on top of a $100,000 fee and $30,000 in annual dues. For those of you who have been to Disneyland, which I have not by the way, you probably have walked through New Orleans Square, which is a replica of Louisiana's iconic city. Somewhere there though, you'll find Club 33, a members only destination. Now the invite only club has a wait list and I doubt that I'll ever get to go there, but it sounds really. Number 7 is New York Stock Exchange, New York City, New York. Thanks to movies including The Wolf of Wall Street and The Big Short, many of us has become fascinated by what goes on inside the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, I know I am. It's easily the most important landmark on Wall Street since the stock exchange practically created the financial district by marketing the neighborhood as an area of business. The main building was built in 1903 and it impressed everybody. This high-profile building was once open to visitors at one point, but it has been closed off to visitors since the September 11th attacks. The increased security now makes it impossible to get too close, but you can soak up all its glory from the outside. It sucks that you can't go inside anymore, but it's a valid reason and safety is important. Number 5. The Knickerbocker Club, New York City, New York. If you happen to be among the world's elite, you might just be lucky enough to be invited inside this stunning Georgian mansion. If not, then this is as close as you'll get to the Knickerbocker Club or the Knick. Now, what is it? It's considered one of America's most exclusive societies. It was founded in 1871 by 18 former members of the Union Club who did not like the Union's club expansion of the membership. Among the Knickerbocker Club founders were such prestigious New Yorkers as Alexander Hamilton and John Jacob Astor. This club is considered one of the most aristocratic gentlemen's clubs in the world, and it only has one rule concerning giving out information about the club, and that is to never give any information out about the club ever. The men-only club is secretive, it doesn't even have a website. Their single Yelp review says, "Truly one of the finest private men's clubs in America. We had a lovely dinner with friends there, it is a reciprocal with the club I belong to. Highly recommend if you get an invitation." Now, the fact that members are forbidden to discussing the going-ons with anyone is interesting, but it seems like someone blabbed though, because if it truly was a secret, we wouldn't know about it, now would we? Anyway, it had many notable members, including Franklin D. Roosevelt and financier J.P. Morgan. Number 4. Rikers Island, New York City, New York. Rikers Island is a 413-acre island in the East River between Queens and the Bronx that contains New York City's main jail complex. It's been there since 1932 and has gained a reputation for brutality and mistreatment. Rikers Island has a reputation for violence, both abuse and neglect of inmates, attracting increased press and judicial scrutiny that has resulted in numerous rulings against the New York City government and numerous by inmates on uniformed and civilian staff, often resulting in serious injuries. In May 2013, Rikers Island ranked as one of the 10 worst correctional facilities in the United States. It's also one of the world's largest correctional institutions and mental institutions that's operated by the New York City Department of Correction, which has a budget of $860 million a year. It has a staff of 9,000 officers and 1,500 civilians who manage 100,000 admissions per year. An average daily population is around 10,000 inmates. The likes of David Berkowitz, the serial killer known as Son of Sam, and Sex Pistols Sid Vicious were incarcerated on Rikers, and today it remains one of America's most notorious prisons.